Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium 10. I'm your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that is our monthly TACoS Tuesday show, where we talk about anything and everything Amazon advertising related. And as always, we have a special guest on with us each month, and every other month, we have the specialist of guests here. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce her. Destaney, welcome back. How's it going?
It is going incredible. Super excited to be here.
Awesome. How's your week been so far?
It's been great. Can't complain.
Can you believe we are in the middle of June of 2024 already? It's like I don't know what's going on here.
We're already being thrown straight into Prime Day planning. Like it never stops.
Yeah, it never ends. And like I think the last few years that I've been in the Amazon world, it has been the fastest years of my life. Like it's just going by. There's always so many things to do. So just right off the bat, let's just kick it off with anything new in the Amazon advertising world over the last couple of months since you've been on here, like new reports from Amazon, or your team has been trying out some new strategies or trying out some new ad types or different things. Anything you can update us on?
I think the two biggest things, Amazon's given us a lot more data lately. Helium 10 and Atomic have already been pulling in some of that data from like a category perspective. So insights and planning brand metrics, which is being tied directly into Atomic now, is one of the best rollouts in my opinion. And they've recently updated it to add even more data around like subscribe and save and lifetime value and repeat purchases, which is always a conversation for sellers, as well as allowing us to see category comparisons. How many clicks are within our category? How many detailed page views are within our category? And how are we comparing to average? I think that was a huge rollout. And then the second big rollout is just all the creative elements we've gotten recently, either from an AI perspective or like sponsored TV. I think those are really big. And even if you're not ready for them yet, it's showing the direction Amazon's going, which is the important part.
Yes. Now, so it was I was on some kind of training yesterday or day before, and somebody actually asked about that, the brand metrics that is showing in advertising. And so that brand metrics page, that's showing um all the data there is across organic and sponsored, or it's
Yep.
only showing you what's happening in sponsored? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was like, there's a 50-50 chance. Somebody asked me which one, and I'm like, I'm gonna, because I saw there was some like fine print, and it just made
Yeah.
it seem like it was across the board. So how are you, which parts of that are you using, and how is that affecting your ad strategy?
I think the biggest thing is, again, it's showing you retail and advertising, organic and advertising combined. So we don't really have a lot of resources for that anywhere else. Those are two different APIs from a technical perspective. So Amazon doesn't usually give us that data. But, there's a lot of questions already in the comments asking about conversion rate and performance and efficiency. And Amazon advertising is amazing for driving clicks. That is its job. Think about it as a customer. If you click on a sponsored ad, you're ready to purchase. And if you don't purchase, it's because the price was wrong, or the listing was poor, or the reviews were poor. If the ad drove the click, it was successful. The reason brand metrics is important is because brand metrics gives us conversion rate compared to the category. So you can pull up brand metrics right now. And like, let's say I'm selling dog toys. I can see that my conversion rate is at 23%, but the category median is a 30%. If I'm converting less than the category, my PPC is not going to be near as efficient because people are going to click, but they're going to buy a category product and not mine. So that's probably the biggest thing that I'm using it for.
Okay, cool. Now, speaking of conversion rates, obviously there's search create performance that can help you with your conversion rates at the even keyword level. But then there's also the counterpoint that sometimes people do is that, hey, the data there is so limited compared to overall. Like anybody can just see the number of sales and compare it because there's only a certain kind of a certain set of character situations where it's going to register in search create performance.
Yep.
Like if somebody clicks something today and then 25 hours later they actually buy it, it doesn't count.
Yep.
They click on something, they click something else, they hit back on their browser and they purchase it doesn't count.
Yep.
I don't know about your experience, but my experience sometimes is between 25 to 40% of overall purchases. But my opinion, I just want to get yours, is that it's still valuable because it's still apples to apples. It's not giving you the whole picture, but you can at least benchmark what's happening with you at the keyword level compared to the exact same situation for other competitors. Is that how you feel, or are you kind of ignoring that data?
100%. From a volume perspective, like a sales volume or an impressions, I don't use it because, like you said, it's a smaller data set. But from a conversion rate perspective, it's probably still showing you, 30 to 40% of your overall data set. Here's how it converts. So that actually scales out pretty well, in my opinion. And that is super, super valuable to understand. Because again, if someone else is converting better than you, they're going to get the same amount of clicks, but drive more orders. That's what conversion rate is at the end of the day. So when you're able to dive into SQP, you can actually see those comparisons on the search term level.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Now going back to Atomic, you had talked a little bit about Atomic and some of the newer features, but something that's been out for a while now is the custom bid rules.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, for any of your clients that you're using Atomic for, have you started at all with the custom bid rules, or are you still using like just the Atomic algorithm and making decisions based on that?
Anyone who I think has followed me knows that I'm a pretty big fan of breaking out by strategy. So that's where we recommend implementing custom bid rules, is because there are certain keywords that maybe you are willing to take a loss on at the end of the day from a keyword level. Again, be clear. I don't want to say, go run
Yeah.
your overall Amazon advertising at a 400% ACoS. But there's certain strategies that are going to need different rules. And that's why it's so important not to have a set it and forget it automation running, in my opinion. Now, if your only goal is a 20% ACoS, you don't care about anything else, your only goal is profitability for your business, for your solopreneur endeavors, that's fine. But if you're really building a brand that's going to scale, it's so competitive in the category and CPCs are kind of increasing that you're going to need to have some keywords that maybe you target at a 50% ACoS because they're your top sales driving keywords. And then maybe you're creating a campaign targeting competitor ASINs that you want to run at a different ACoS. That's where it gets really important to start building out those segment and strategies. We also do it on the life cycle level. So if you have an established product with hundreds of reviews, you can run at a lower ACoS because your conversion rate's higher. If you have a new product launch, you don't want to set a low ACoS or else you're going to drive zero sales and your honeymoon period is going to flop because you have no data.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, keep putting the questions in the chat. We're going to get to those in a little bit. I just have one more question for now for Destaney. This is some, maybe you saw, I think this person posted in our Helium 10 Elite Facebook group that you're in with a similar question, but I was on a one-on-one call with them. And I gave them an answer. I'm assuming I think your answer is going to be very similar, but it was somebody who's selling in like topicals or supplements, where they're subscribe and save, but they at one time they weren't doing advertising because their reviews were really bad and they were trying to increase those and they didn't want to spend a whole bunch. But now they're at a place where like, all right, we're gonna go all in on Amazon advertising.
Yep.
But they were just noticing some ridiculous cost per clicks, as often is in supplements and topicals and things. And so they're like, how do we manage it? So there's a lot of people maybe even watching who if they're just getting into supplements, they probably have some crazy sticker shock of what kind of cost per clicks they have. But how do you calculate LTV, with the data that Amazon, gives and tools available, and where is your like how do you help brands like that really focus to make sure long term they're profitable?
Historically, this has been a really vague area in Amazon. They haven't given us a lot of insights. I know that we have a lot of plans on the Helium 10 side here. But the first thing that you need to consider is just that repeat purchase rate. In supplements, we consistently see $20 to $40 cost per clicks for a $20 to $40 product. And the part that people need to remember is if you get a customer to buy your supplements and you believe in your product, your supplement should be good enough that they buy it the next month and the month after and the month after. So that's why lifetime value is so important to understand, because if they end up buying your $20 supplement 4 times, that's $80. So even though you paid $20 cost per click, the product you sold was actually $80 because ideally they come back and repeat purchase from you. So that's super important. I think when it comes to actually coming up and finding those insights, the majority of people rely on typically their D2C information because that's where you have it most easily accessible. Amazon gives you subscribe and save data within brand metrics, insights, and planning, like I mentioned. and also through DSP. You can have a pretty clear indicator of what your subscribe and save or your repeat purchase rate is. And that's what helps you justify those high cost per clicks. And that's why you see them as well. If people know that someone comes back 5 to 6 times, they're going to be willing to pay for that first purchase because they have a great product.
Yep, absolutely. All right, good. Again, that was what I had answered. I'm glad we're on the same page here. All right, we got the first question from Joan. Joan says, it's a pretty common question, I would say. What's the best strategy to control ad spend for a $21 item in a competitive niche? Cost per click is often over $2. You know, some of those supplement sellers wish they had cost per clicks at $2. But we're selling product, but we're only helping Jeff buy more rockets. We aren't profitable unless I can improve ad spend efficiency. So, you know, right off the bat, like if at $2 on a $20 product, they're not profitable, probably, you know, their conversion rate is not very high, I'm assuming, on some of these keywords.
100%. The first thing is to realize whether or not you have a conversion rate problem or an Amazon advertising problem. So going back to our initial kind of call out, I recommend going into Atomic, going into your account overview. A few people later on have asked this question on where you find the data I mentioned. Atomic, account overview, brand performance. And then once you're within brand performance, you can niche down and figure out how you're performing compared to the category. If you're converting better than the category, then it is an ad efficiency issue. It means you need to improve the keywords you're targeting. Instead of going after dog toy, which may be too broad for your dog toy, go after soft dog toy for small dogs, where you're going to be sacrificing lower volume, but a higher conversion rate because the keywords are a lot more related to the product you're selling. So you can justify that $2 cost per click. The other answer is to just lower your bids. If you can't afford $2 because you're not converting well, lower your bids. What's going to happen when you lower your bid is your ad's going to show up in less premium real estate at the bottom of the page or page 2 and page 3, but it's going to be cheaper and more profitable for you. So that's the trade-off you're going to have to make until you improve your conversion rate.
Okay, excellent. Jay Smith says, hello from the UK. I recently launched, should I be doing this in a British accent? Oh, okay, never mind. I've recently launched a new product and I'm finding my phrase and broad match campaigns are performing much better than exact match. Are there any scenarios where you would suggest pausing exact match campaigns and only running phrase and broad during the first few weeks of launch? I don't think I've seen this question before.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend pausing them. I think the first thing you need to realize is, do you have different bids across all 3 of them? More than likely your exact match bids are higher. So it's maybe just a little bit more expensive for you. The other thing to consider is, again, if I'm targeting dog toys, an exact match, that's really broad from a term itself, right? So it can be a little bit competitive targeting just dog toys. But if I run dog toys in broad, I'm showing up for dog toys for small dogs, dog toys for this, this, and this. So sometimes your broad and phrase match are going to be a little bit more profitable because they're targeting longer tail terms that are more aligned with your product. So open up your campaign, open up your ad group, look at the search terms that those broad and phrase matches are performing on. And if they're long tail, take out those long tails and put them into exact match, and you can control the performance just as well. Easy answer is lower your bid on exact match to find the conversion ACoS points. But the more long answer and the better long-term solution is to figure out why the search terms in your broad and phrase match are performing that much better, and then move them to an exact so you can control the bid precisely within your exact match campaign.
Excellent. Excellent. We got some long and well thought out questions here. I like
Yes.
it today. Diska says, hey, Bradley and Destaney, is it possible that if we're running campaigns of a seller winning the buy box ASINs from Vendor Central Ad Console, will it not show ads on them as we are running from vendor rather than seller? I work with an agency and we have a vendor FBA ASINs as well as other brand seller ASINs. Good grief, this is a mouthful. So we thought to run campaigns only from vendor, as from there we can run on both, but recently faced some issues on seller winning buy box ASINs in DE. Does that mean Germany or?
Yeah, I assume so. I haven't ran out of both in the last 6 months. Historically, you're correct. Vendor Central does allow you to advertise on both, regardless of who's in the buy box. So I don't think you should be running into issues here. Maybe make sure that your SKU is the exact same. Sometimes like they'll run into issues there, like your ASIN's broad, and make sure you're niching down to the appropriate SKU within that ASIN. I don't think you should be running into this issue. I'm curious if you're just not getting impressions or if it's an eligibility issue, because if it should show you an eligibility issue within Ad Console, but if it's just lack of impressions, then it's a bid problem.
Okay.
It's a very technical
I'm
question.
I'm glad you were here, because I don't know where to start on that one. All right, but on the flip side, here's one that we get all the time, and this is, the eternal debate. This is an eternal debate here. It's from Kim. He says, "Hey there. When you use a search term from an auto ad for an exact or product ad, should you move it to negative in the auto to avoid redundancy? Is there any cost per bid difference that could affect impression and conversion between those ads?" So this is also called keyword isolation. And Destaney, what's your philosophy on that?
I'm very familiar with why people isolate keywords. We personally don't isolate keywords because we find that when you move them from an auto campaign to a manual campaign, you're starting from scratch from a relevancy perspective. So within your auto campaign, you got to think your bids are typically lower. They're typically solely focused on profitability. So you're casting a really wide net. So the ASIN or the search term you're converting on within the auto campaign could be on page 7, page 8. It could be within the frequently bought together section. That's a new sponsored section, or anywhere else on the page. And it's running well for a reason, because Amazon has, the shopper history and they're targeting those placements because they have a lot of data. When you pull it out, if you negate it, there's pretty much 100% chance it's not going to perform the exact same when you put it into a manual campaign. Most people kind of almost restart that relevancy journey that they were on and find that their manual campaign does not perform as well, especially in the first 6 to 8 weeks, because you have to refine that sweet spot. We continue to run them separately and just control the bids. If it's there's a few scenarios where I could recommend isolation. Like if it's your core keyword eating up all of your impressions and sales in your auto campaign, like sure, move it over to manual. But then also the second part of your question, is there a cost per bid difference? Yes, typically there is. We find autos are typically winning inventory for lower CPCs, and impression and conversions also a yes. Your manual campaigns typically higher impression because you're typically running a bid specifically for that keyword.
Excellent. All right. Question I think I can handle. I'll do this one. That's from Jay Smith. During the first week of launch, my sales have been really high, especially on top keywords, but my organic rank is not moving much on many of the top keywords. Any tips for improving organic rank during launch, or does it just take time and consistent sales? My BSR is top 10 in my subcategories, so my sales are good. So a couple things. First of all, make sure that you have boost on in keyword tracker so that we're checking 24 hours a day and rotating browsing scenarios just to see, that, who knows, maybe your rank is improving in some locations, just not others, or some browsing scenarios. So make sure you have that boost on. That's that rocket ship. The other thing is, look at the CPR number inside of keyword tracker. Once you have, you already said you have the keywords in keyword tracker, there's a customized CPR number. It's actually different than the one that's in Cerebro and Magnet because it's specific to your listing, takes in consideration the age of it, your title density, and things like that. And then see what that number is. If that number is, let's just say 50, that means that, hey, over a week and a half, you would need around 50 people to search, find, and buy your product, whether it's organic, whether it's in PPC. Probably it's going to be PPC. If you're not organically ranked very high, it's 100% from PPC. And so you can clearly see how many conversions you're getting on that keyword. And that's the best chance, that number, of getting you to stick to page 1. So if you're not at that number yet, well, there's another reason. The other thing to look at is you could have a relevancy issue to Amazon. So run your product in Cerebro and then sort it by Amazon recommended rank. All right. This to me is the most slept on mini feature in all of Helium 10. It's a direct link to the Amazon API. This is not a Helium 10 estimation or an algorithm or anything like that. It's directly to the actual Amazon advertising API, but it gives you a look into what Amazon thinks your product is. So just sort that in ascending order, meaning you're going to see the Amazon recommended rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and just take a look at the general those general keywords. It tells you what Amazon thinks your product is. And so if some of the keywords you're trying to increase your rank on are very specific and none of them even appear like in the top 20, 30, 40, 50 words, Well, yeah, it might take more effort to get to page one, or you need to re-optimize your listing to kind of like show Amazon what your product is. But I've had issues like that where my listing was fine, but Amazon was confused about it, and so even though I was getting sales, it wasn't increasing my organic rank. So there's 3 things that you can try there. Kim says, let's go back to Destiny here. Kim says, is there any magic mojo way to control profitability when bids quickly rise due to an upcoming event like Prime Day? I often find that the increase in sales rarely offsets the lost profit. So if I could find an automated way to control bidding, it would be helpful. There's some good questions today. My
There
goodness.
is. Your bids don't change unless you're changing them, is the first thing that I'll say. So unless you're using a software with rules that you're not controlling, or you have aggressive placement modifiers on, your bids will stay the same regardless
She's
of what
probably
the
talking
market.
about cost per click. I bet you she mistyped
Okay.
that probably. Yeah.
CPCs. So if we're talking about CPCs, like it's also related. You know, you're not going to see a major change. You can keep your bids low during Prime Day if you want. Just know that you're probably not going to get as much traffic because the rest of the market is increasing their bids. So as everyone else is bidding higher and higher and higher, it's like bidding on real estate. You're going to be showing up lower and lower on the page. So you're just going to get less sales. And some people are okay with that on Prime Day. I will say personally, across the board as an agency, we find that the increase in conversion rate almost always offsets the increase in bids when we're really strategic. That being said, the majority of our brands do have some type of promotion or deal or discount. So their conversion rate's inflated because customers think that they're getting a deal. So, short answer is don't rely on placement modifiers and keep your bid management software set to a target ACoS, and you're probably not going to see that big of a change in bids on the day of.
Okay. Excellent. Sydney was going back to where we said, hey, where can you see the brand metrics? So let me just share my screen just to show people where that is. Of course, I should have. But did you say that you were talking about the Atomic team and we're actually bringing some of that into Atomic as well?
Brand metrics is pulled into Atomic right now.
I didn't even know that. You know more than me about Atomic. My goodness.
It's under account overview. So it's actually a little bit not difficult to find, but it's hidden, I would say, because most people I'd say go immediately to like dashboard and then niche down from there. But if you go to account overview, brand performance is what it's called within Atomic. And if you're in ad console, it's on the left-hand side, insights and planning, brand metrics, then select a subcategory, which is the part most people struggle with. Right there. Yep.
And, yep, there it is right there. Brand metrics. Okay.
If you want to click into it.
And Amazon is not working.
Amazon.
Oh, well,
For everyone who complains
but
about like
at least you know where it is in the menu there.
Yes. And then it allows you to niche down as narrow as you want to go. And it's fantastic.
Awesome. Okay.
And to Sydney's follow-up question is available for all types of campaign types. It's pulling in all retail and advertising data. So
excellent. Shubham says, what's our launch strategy for $50 product? Prime Day is also coming up. We wanted to reduce the price to where a customer buys, but how many keywords shall we run in launch PPC? But let's just take the other part of that. You know, there's people who might have some products that are going to be ready in the next month and a half. Should they just go ahead and launch? Should they wait until actual Prime Day and take advantage of that? Should they wait until after Prime Day? What's your general strategy as far as timing goes?
The first brand that I managed on my own as a consultant was a Prime Day launch, and it was incredibly successful. But this was 7 years ago. The thing to consider is how much you're going to lean into Bradley's point. If you don't reduce the price, you are going to drown in Prime Day and not do incredibly well. And you may not anyways because you don't have a lot of reviews. That being said, if you plan on doing a pretty heavy discount on Prime Day, it is a fantastic way to get inflated traffic from people who are ready to buy. And customers on Prime Day are a lot less sensitive to reviews, in my opinion, and a lot more sensitive to price. So I always hate this question because I feel like it's so dependent on budget and financing and all these other variables.
Sure.
But if you want to heavily reduce your price and stand out, then Prime Day is the way to go. There's no other industry that drives this amount of traffic on any specific day, I don't think. So definitely take advantage of that.
Okay. He had a follow-up question. He or she had a follow-up question. At what point should we start using Atomic? We're new, launching our very first product. So is there like, is this something that somebody should be using from day one? Should they reach a certain advertising spend figure? What's your personal opinion?
Personal opinion is it's really dependent on, I think, what your skill set is internally and where your time's going. PPC is a major efficiency time suck. I think it's probably one of the most hands-on, consistent, redundant tasks. And that's where everybody needs a bid management solution. No matter if that's you going in every day and managing bids by hand or relying on a tool like Atomic, I'll leave that up to you. But if you're running any Amazon advertising campaigns and you're not managing your bids, that is the biggest mistake you can make. So I think the convenience of Atomic incorporating directly into category insights and like Market Tracker 360 is the biggest value add in my opinion. But if you're in your first few weeks and you have time to go in and optimize bids manually, then that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Now, before you answer this next question, tell me again where in Atomic is the brand metrics. I want to find it while you're answering this question, because I'm like shocked that I didn't know that this was launched and you knew it.
Yeah. Account overview, right above dashboard, and then scroll to the very bottom to brand performance. Select your brand.
Oh, there it is right there.
Yeah. Select your category. And you can, it may be worth pulling up on your own, honestly, because it shows customer conversion rate, which is incredibly, incredibly important.
Okay, I'm going to start taking a look at that while you answer this next question. So this is from Kim. Would you have any tips on a general ad strategy? Competitive categories. Page one is filled with non-advertised, low price items, but your product is not at price parity.
Great question. We see this pretty frequently. The biggest thing is don't get caught up in the Amazon world. Don't get caught up in an Amazon algorithm. How do you convince a shopper to buy a premium product? You educate them and you make them understand why your product is so much better. On Amazon, that's pretty much limited to creatives and the content on the page. But that's where telling the story and showcasing that your product is better quality, better flavor, better everything makes a big difference. And then when it comes to Amazon advertising, you got to think that your price point's higher, which means you can reinvest in advertising more than they can. So they're running such lean margins that's why they're not aggressively advertising. But this gives you an opportunity to show up at the top of the page. So you can, inflate your organic positioning pretty much by winning the top 4 advertising placements and being number 1, which means you're going to get over 70% of click share if you're that number 1 sponsored ad placement. You just need to make sure that when customers click onto your listing is so much better than your competitors that the conversion rate offsets the advertising cost, right? That's the important part. If your listing looks the same as every other low price product, the customer is going to buy the low price product. If your listing is that much better and showcases why you're more expensive, then you're going to be able to afford to advertise in number 1 and have a competitive advantage.
All right. So yes, I found it. It was right where Destaney said it was here in Atomic. And I'm still unable to get there in Seller Centrals, just for some reason not working. But hey, guys, there's a win for Atomic. But all those data points that she was talking about is all listed here. So if you've got Atomic, go ahead and make sure to take a look at that from the main dashboard. You hit the menu on the top left over here to account overview, and it's right there at the bottom.
If you want to keep this up really quick, I wanted to show something. Within Amazon advertising, we can't open it up. You have to niche down to the specific category you want before it gives you the data. Atomic pulls it all holistically here. So you can see we're going as high as pain relievers. So here's our performance overall within pain relievers. But then it also allows us to niche down into bath rugs. And I believe we can also select a category possibly. And maybe not.
Oh, like up here, maybe?
Yeah. And go, I think you can like kind of sub-select so that way you can niche down a little bit further.
Oh yeah, I see. There's a lot of subcategories here that aren't here. Okay, awesome, cool stuff. Like, see, I I got some stuff I can play with after this call here. All right, let's see. Jaleel says, what would your optimization be if you had a keyword running in all three match types? All good conversion rate, but the phrase match is a clear winner cost per click wise. Increase phrase budget and decrease the other budgets?
Well, it's not really fair saying that one is a clear winner because CPC wise, because you control CPC. That just means that you're bidding the lowest on your phrase match compared to the other two. What you need to be looking at is what's converting the best and then putting the majority of your budget to that and increasing your bid for your highest converting match type. Your CPC is controlled by you pretty much across the board. You're setting the bid that then is influencing the auction that's giving the CPC. So I don't ever typically look at like CPC in this format.
Okay. Hector says, what's your strategy if you got a low price product under $10? What kind of ads, campaign, and budget? So obviously you're not using DSP and sponsored TV and stuff like that if you got a $8 product. But I mean, for me, like I've got under $10 products, and a lot of the strategy is very similar. It's just you got to really have a tight control over your spend and what your bids are and things like that. But do you have anything to add to that?
You usually can't play top of search. You typically have to rely more on, rest of search. ASIN targeting does really well across the board, whether it's sponsored products, sponsored brands, or sponsored display. Because price point is your competitive advantage, at any point where you can show up under a higher price point product, which is what ASIN targeting allows you to do, you're usually going to do well. So you can open up sponsored display product targeting, for example, and only target competitors that have a price point higher than $20. That's going to make you stand out on the page, and those things do really well.
David says, what metric do you look at to determine where a budget needs to be increased or decreased across your campaign types, sponsored brand, sponsored product, and sponsored display?
Love this question. As a whole, we typically see sponsored products drive around 70 to 80% of sales because they make up the most real estate on the page. Sponsored brands video is 10 to 15%. Sponsored display is the least amount of budget, only because most people aren't fully utilizing it appropriately. At the end of the day, sponsored brands and sponsored products, ROAS and ACOS, should be almost the same if you're running them appropriately. I've pulled this across hundreds of millions of spend, and it's still just targeting keywords and setting bids. So for those two ad types, you should increase or decrease based off ROAS for the most part, or ACoS, but your ACoS and ROAS should be the same. That being said, if you are managing a brand that has a good D2C presence or a meta presence and you have amazing video assets and amazing lifestyle images, sometimes we'll shift more budget to sponsored brand and sponsored display because we want to educate our customer with those videos before we convert them with sponsored products.
Chris says, if you've got an eligibility issue, what are other ways to drive traffic aside from PPC?
A great question. If one thing we'll see is some brands will only have certain products running into eligibility issues, but all their other products will be okay. If that's the case, we recommend still running sponsored brands to the store. You can create a sub page with some of your products that are ineligible and some of them are eligible, and continue to run sponsored brand traffic as a really quick workaround. Beyond that, I think it really depends on product type. Like TikTok could be fantastic if you're great at the videography and the UGC needed to make TikTok successful. Google can be good, but typically you need to build a landing page between your Google and your Amazon ads, so that way you have your conversion increase still. Bradley, do you have any other recommendations here?
No, you kind of hit it. And then plus two, there's other platforms that might be able to drive some traffic, and then the more your branded search increases, the more organic eyeballs you guys are going to get without sponsored. But that that goes for anybody, whether you are eligible or not. That's kind of like the goal is to get a lot of organic eyeballs on your products without having to spend for it. A question here from Netaji: how many days once we need to do bid adjustment? Is it really time, or it's more of activity and clicks and impressions and things like that?
100%. It's more of impressions and clicks. As an example, we're in the supplement category. The keyword protein can get thousands of clicks a day. And on a day like Prime Day, like 20,000 clicks. So in that case, we're having to optimize a lot quicker because we have conversion data a lot quicker. We can start looking at hourly insights and things like that. On the flip side, if I had a 10-cent bid for protein, I'm going to be getting 5 clicks a week. And if I have 5 clicks, then I need to update my bids weekly because I don't have enough data to make a decision on. So there's really no one size fits all solution. This is an area where I've split tested a million different tools. No matter who has the best AI, whoever has the best day parting, it makes less than a 2% difference from what we've seen. And it's more about automating for the data that you are personally receiving. So every 1 to 2 days, hourly, if you're getting thousands of insights, but
Okay. Brendan, a lot of people thinking about Prime Day, and rightfully so, coming up. How do you approach Prime Day lead in, lead out when it comes to budgeting? Also, what's a fair estimate for cost per click lift? So, like, is there a rule of thumb where, hey, usually you need to increase your budgets this amount, to make sure you have enough, or usually you need to, boost your cost per click X percentage?
I'm going to start with the lead in, lead out. That one's super easy to kind of answer. Typically, the 7 days leading into Prime Day are historically the worst performance in all of Amazon advertising. End of story.
Mhm.
That being said, the part that people forget is that customers are shopping. They're just not buying. That's why your
Mhm.
clicks are up, but your sales are down, is because customers are starting to build their carts for Prime Day. They know that Prime Day is now a national holiday. So in the back of their mind, they may go onto the platform and say, hey,
Mm.
shoot, I need my toilet paper that I always buy. Oh, wait, I'm not going to buy it until Prime Day. So I'm going to hold off. So some people like to lower their bids and budgets on the week leading up. I prefer to continue to run at the same strategy if I'm running a dealer discount, because those customers are going to add to cart and click. And then when they see my discount the next week, they're going to check out. So I am still building my funnel and attracting my shoppers the weekend, even though they're not buying until 7 days later. That is one really important key to mention. Again, if you're not running deals or discounts, maybe it's worth it lowering your bids and budgets on lead in. Lead out the last 2 years has been some of the strongest conversion rates we have seen across the board, even stronger than Prime Day in a few instances. And that's because Prime Day is no longer Prime Day, it's Prime Week, and it's being challenged by Walmart and every off platform. So customers are still continuing to shop on the days after. So lead out, we continue to keep bids and budgets high, and we'll also run a lot of retargeting if we're running any type of DSP or sponsored display, because sponsored display and DSP allows us to capture all of the traffic and all of the clicks from Prime Day and then continue to retarget that audience after Prime Day. So that's super important and super valuable. And then estimate for CPC lift, there's really not one, because it's like every agency or software that releases CPC insights is skewed by the type of brands they're managing. Right. PackView always cracks me up. When PackView does like their insights, it's going to be skewed by a lot of enterprise brands. So their CPC lifts could be 50% because they're running crazy discounts and have crazy marketing budgets. But maybe a smaller software won't increase their bids because they don't believe in Prime Day, right? So we personally do, 20 to 30% increase in bids if we're running deals or discounts, and just go from there.
Okay.
Was a long answer. We have so many questions that are like
I know,
long
it's crazy.
thought out ones.
Yeah, here's one from Pedro. Is gonna I'm highlighting this one because I think it's a very common question here. Is, do you recommend putting all your variants, or in our case, just a different number of the same units in the same campaign, or just focus on the best sellers?
This is a fun one. I like this question, especially how he called out the different number of the same units.
Mhm.
What we recommend doing is advertising your lowest price point product, because that's what's going to get the most clicks. Most customers on Amazon know how to navigate child variations. So you want to bring them into your listing. That's the goal of PPC. So we use our lowest price point, or our lowest, it's typically your lowest unit. And then once they land on your listing, they're still going to see your highest price point. It's not like they're going to be less likely to buy your highest price point. They can click on that and then choose to buy afterwards. I would say the same thing if it's apparel or flavor variations. We typically try to advertise whatever has the highest click-through rate. first. If there's a variation of flavor or something, we will separate them out into different campaigns so we can target specific flavors in a segmented fashion.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna skip around here just to try and make sure we get a wide variety of questions before we have to close up. Brendan says, follow up to that Prime Day question. Brand tailored promotions. I'm assuming you want to increase any discounts there.
Yes, it's definitely valuable. I think the two questions that I would typically push back on here is, one, are you devaluing your brand by continuing to stack promotions? Keep that in mind. And two, someone earlier mentioned that the profit never outweighs their increasing clicks. But one thing that we like to use Prime Day for is like a ranking strategy. So if we can increase our conversion rate and drive a ton of traffic very frequently, we've split test this, we'll see our organic rank improve on the page. And we're going to continue to get sales after Prime Day because of our improved presence. So that's another thing I would kind of keep in mind here, to Brendan's point of like, if you can increase your conversion rate a ton, 100% push brand tailored promos. But also know that, like, from a pricing policy standpoint, you may run into issues if you're stacking promotions.
Okay. Miriam says, hey there, can you talk about placement, bid adjustments? Do you recommend any strategies to follow when you realize you've got a better conversion rate in some locations than in others?
Well, there's no geo-targeting abilities. Locations isn't physical locations, it's placement locations, I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay, that was my bad. Forget the geo-targeting response immediately off the gate.
Sometimes it's hard to try and like
piece it together.
Get in the mind and translate these, but I think you're right there. In that, yeah.
The one thing to note is placement modifiers can be tricky because they're applying on the campaign level to all of your keywords, which means that when you're running placement modifiers and bid management, they're stacking on top of each other and not really controlled, because a placement modifier does not mean Amazon will increase your bid by 50% on every single keyword. It's hopping around, and that makes it really difficult to run consistent bid management. I personally do not love using placement modifiers for that reason. We rely on bid management to make those decisions. That being said, top of search, historically, always the highest converting placement on the page. So sometimes I will create campaigns specifically for top of search and only have 1 to 5 keywords in there. So I'm not worried about this duplication issue with my bids upping and downing based off my modifiers. If your product pages are performing best, move more ASIN targeting, do a lot more product targeting, and kind of look into your competitive advantage there. It's just too inconsistent, and I hate giving that answer because I don't think it's a great one, but placement modifiers are hard to apply with bid management solutions.
Malia says, is it a terrible idea to launch a product with $40 daily PPC budget in Amazon USA? Product price at launch will be about $45 to $50 after discount. This is my first private label product. So he's got a kind of semi high ticket item.
Yeah.
But is it, like, is there a place where, or a number where you're saying, yeah, it's not, it's a terrible idea, or it's just, no, you need to work within your budget?
I think it's work within your budget almost across the board. Just remember that that's a $40 a day. If you're going to target 10 keywords, you're not probably going to be able to even afford 10 clicks across those 10 keywords. So just start small and don't spread your budget too thin. And remember, if you're starting with a smaller budget up front, it may take longer to get ranked because you're going to drive a lot less traffic than the category, but that's not bad. It's going to give you time to optimize and go slow without just hemorrhaging cash.
Niso says, how much weight do you give to ROAS?
A decent amount. I think it's an industry metric. We prefer looking at TACoS because I want to know the relationship between my ads and my total sales. ROAS is a great general marketing metric, but on Amazon, it's different because if you spend more money, your organic rank improves. So sometimes ROAS should be viewed quite a bit lower on Amazon because it's improving your positioning on the page.
Kim says, I've tried sponsored display ads many times, and having products with lower price values can't seem to get them to be profitable. Is there a strategy that helps profitability here? Sometimes it works okay to use them as defense on my own pages, but I feel like I would likely have gotten the sale from my listing anyway.
Great question. It's all about your bid management with sponsored display product targeting. So a lot of people jump straight into category targeting or audience targeting, and that's where things get little out of hand because you're going a little bit too broad. But with sponsored display product targeting, it's just bid management. So select the products that you're pulling from your search term reports on sponsored products and optimize your bids based off your conversion rate. Once you have that kind of tuned in, move up to category targeting. And again, it does relate to your niche here. If you're in a more competitive one and you aren't able to have a price point value, look at your other competitive advantage. Do you have a color variation that no one else has? Can you only target specific ASINs that have worse reviews or things like that? I'm also laughing at the niche or niche question because according to the dictionary, it's actually both. Riches and the niches is just what went viral because it was a cute saying.
We got reaches and the niches.
Yes, but I think the actual traditional, I think it started with niche and then moved to niche because of a fun saying.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah. I used
Fun
to say
fact,
niche,
bonus
but
tip.
then I migrated to niche as well. I don't know. I think it was after I started working at Helium 10.
Yeah, when I
Just like,
started
it
working
sounds
like
more fancy.
CPG, that's what I did. Like I started with niche because it was,
Yeah.
oh, that's cute. But then I think on the enterprise, it's typically niche.
Yeah. All right. Last question of the day before we get maybe into just your closing comments or your closing tip. This is from somebody new who hasn't asked a question today. Z says, does sponsored products and sponsored display defensive campaigns eat up organic sales? Does it affect my TACoS in the long run?
The answer is yes. There's some level of defensive campaigns that would have happened anyways. But that's really hard to prove because the way Amazon is set up as a platform, what happens if you do not advertise there? Someone else will. So you need to decide on the balance of, do you have a strong enough competitive advantage that a customer's going to stay on your page and not go to your competitor's page? And is it that big of a deal if you do cannibalize some of your organic presence? Like, I would rather cannibalize some of my organic presence than lose a customer to a competitor.
Yep.
So it's just deciding. Now, that being said, Silas, who is on the Helium 10 podcast at one point, he runs Lego or used to run Lego.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of my great friends in the space. And he tried to convince me that like branded defense is never needed. And I was like, Silas, Lego doesn't have competitors. Like, of course you don't need to bid on Lego. Who the heck's going to try to compete? So it's definitely a little bit dependent on depending on your category.
Yep.
Oh, I'm enjoying the conversation here on if it's niche or niche.
It's Andre says it's niche in the UK. All right. Niche in the USA. He says though as well. Okay, yeah. We have started a big debate here. This is the one takeaway that people have from today. But in order to make that not the one takeaway people have, can you give us like a 30 or 60-second strategy to close this out? Something you think that could help sellers maybe leading up to Prime Day, or it could be just a general advertising strategy or a metric that you think people are sleeping on, or an ad type, anything at all that you can think of that quick hitting and people can take away from today.
I'll give two really big ones. Start viewing your Amazon advertising by strategy. Have some keywords solely focused on profitability, where your goal is to lower your bids and have an amazing ACoS or ROAS. Have some campaigns that are all about sales and driving volume and organic rank. Have some that are for brand defense. And when you segment out these campaigns, that gives you budget control. So to Z's question earlier of like, hey, maybe I do realize my brand defense campaigns are eating up my budget. Lower your budget and shift your budget over to your organic rank campaigns. When you segment, it gives you maximum control. The second thing I'm going to shout out is the last webinar we did on ad type expansion. This is 100% the second biggest issue I see within accounts is not expanding to sponsored brands because they don't think it's right for them. At the end of the day, sponsored brands will perform almost identical to your sponsored products with good bid management and good campaign setup, but it's more real estate on the page that's unique real estate. So you're going to show up at the very top of the page. You're going to show up on product detail pages in placements that sponsored products does not win.
Awesome. All right. Well, Destaney, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. You're not going to be back here on TACoS Tuesday, at least before Prime Day. But maybe we can talk offline about doing something Prime Day related, since there were so many Prime Day questions.
Yes.
It's obvious that it's top of mind. And unlike inventory and other things, PPC is something that you can kind of like up to the day before Prime Day, kind of like, lock in your strategy. So that is something maybe we can think about doing next month, right before Prime Day. But Destaney, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all for such great questions. It seems like every show, the questions get better and better. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next month for TACoS Tuesday.
Thank you all.